We're gonna keep the beat.
Beep, boop, beep, boop, boop. Check. Sync. I am wearing my glasses today because it feels like one of those kind of rainy, overcast days where I am. So today we're going to be talking about multicam sequences and how to use them. Now, this video is going to be a little bit longer and more in depth because I want to kind of just hold your hand and work through this together. So if you're the kind of person who's Googling like I do during the middle of a project and you're trying to find a quick answer to what you're doing, I will kind of bookmark and break this up. The program that I'll be using is Adobe Premiere Pro. So if you're using DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut, there might be a way to do multicam sequences, but the best way that I know of right now is through Adobe. Now, what is a multicam sequence? For those of you that don't know, it's when you have a series of video cameras that are recording at the same time for like a wedding or an event, and you're all recording the same source and they're all recording at the same time. What you end up doing is building a timeline that allows you to cut between these cameras quite easily versus having to kind of try and take the individual clips between them. So let me show you what that looks like. This is my folder here. I'm going to assume that you have some kind of project basics or video editing basics that go with this. And if you don't, I have 2 videos on my channel that kind of go through the fundamentals of Adobe Premiere. If not, there are many resources online that will get you up to speed. So this is how I like to organize my project files. I usually start with a simple 4-structure folder or 5 or 6. I keep the programs at the top and I have all my source footage here. I've gone ahead and put all my different camera clips in their own folders, and you can see they're in their individual spots. And then I also create an assets for like graphics and music and stuff and an exports. So we're going to jump into the Premiere file. Now I have it open over here, so let me slide that bad boy over. And I've done a little work setting this up just to kind of so that you don't have to watch me build a bare bones timeline. So I've replicated the same setup in the program file. The way to make these is just with bins. You click the bin button down here. You can create a bin and change the name. I've ingested all of my media, so I would click on that space here, find the footage, select it, right? And then I click on the clip and rename it. So clean this up a little bit. And then assets, I just kind of have a counting leader in here to show you what the deal is. The next thing I would need to do is take these clips. I'm holding shift. Actually, I'm not going to do it that way. Because when you hold shift, it takes them in a line. And what I want to do is I want to just individually drag them in to my sequence here and synchronize them. Now, I was having problems with this before. The way that I would normally do a multicam sequence or get these synchronized is you can select them, right click and go synchronize. And you can synchronize it by audio. So what the program will do is actually look through the different waveforms and compare them and line them up appropriately. For some reason right now I'm having this error message that pops up and it doesn't want to work. And I've done a little research online. It looks like this is kind of a bug that some people have. They're not sure if it's something related to your system. I was able to restart my system one time and it worked. So that may work for you. It may not. We're going to show you the manual way to kind of do this. So what I did when I recorded these, and you get to see what our live subject is today. So I set up a Mario Kart Live track around my apartment here. And we got the screen recording of Mario ripping around the tracks, giving us the wahoos and the yahoos. Woohoo! So let's sync these clips together. So the way that I did it, and this is pretty standard, is if you have audio sources that can hear each other, just a clap. I just clap and you can see that spike in the waveforms right here on the timeline. And we'll just drag these over so that they're in line with each other. And if you want to get really precise with your dragging, you can press Command and the arrow keys. If you just do the arrow keys, it's 1 frame at a time. And if you hold Shift, it's multiple frames. And I can just get nice in there and line that up. So that's how to manually synchronize something quite easily. The one other thing that we need to consider here is, so this Ninja 5 recording of Mario from the Switch won't hear the clap because it's a video game that doesn't have a mic. So what we need to do with that is bring that in and just find two spots that are similar. The way that I sync this, I've already built it on the left here, but I'm just going to show you if you're doing this yourself so you're not completely lost, is find a point where they would be at the exact same frame. So for example, I'm going to need one of these other angles here because I'm kind of doing this on the fly. Let's say the iPhone, right? So the iPhone has the right angle of the starting section. We bring that Ninja in. On the Ninja, I know where it is, where the very first frame where he starts to move forward after go, right there. So I've made a mark. I click on this clip and press the M key, M is in miles, and it will drop this little marker. And now I know I can trim all the way down to there for the starting point. And then I'm going to find where he starts on this clip. And I would find that frame right there, I think it is. Maybe even before that. Nope, before that. So right there, right there. And then I would slide this over to have that synchronized. So that's what I'm doing to synchronize all these clips. And then usually what I do is just kind of hold shift while I'm on the cut tool. I press C for the cut tool, hold shift to make this line, cut, press V, select that all, and delete it, just to kind of, clean things up so we're having a even start and end point. Okay, so let's get rid of that for now. So this is my synchronized, cleaned up timeline. The problem when you don't use a multicam sequence is you end up having to make like these individual transitions like this, or like cutting out sections of a clip, and it becomes this kind of like hack job mess. And so I'm going to show you the value of doing a multicam because it makes this 100 times easier. There's kind of two ways to set up a multicam sequence. The first one that I'm going to show you is the way that I would normally set this up, but it isn't working. Now, if it does end up working at some point, this is a great way to do it, but we're going to do the second way to proceed. What you would do is you would select all these clips before you've put them into the timeline, and right click and create multicam sequence. And this is a pretty easy menu to look at. All you want to do again is synchronize by audio. You want to synchronize these by all cameras, the sequence settings, and hit OK. The problem that I'm having again is it doesn't want to do this automatic synchronize. So again, just to let you know that that exists, but today it's not working. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do this in the sequence setting, and the benefit is we've already synchronized our clips, so we'll just kind of squish them in together into one multicam view. So select all your clips, right click, and then go to Nest. So the Nest is kind of how we're doing this multicam sequence, and it's pushed all our video layers down into one layer, which is great. I'm going to bring that multicam sequence, put it in our sequence file so we're organized. Now, note that when it did that, it has unlinked the audio and the video. So just be careful about sliding things around because you are unlinked from that. There's a benefit to doing this way because if you know which audio source you want to take from the other ones, right? For example, because some of these are going to be room, some of these are going to be the switch. I know which one is the switch. It's down here because I made an accident, and on the Ninja 5 I recorded it at 5.1 surround sound, so I need to change that so it's the center channel, and then I can hear that, and you'll probably get, yeah, we can hear it. Okay, great. In fact, that's a great point. I want to just kind of clean this up to the start. That was me setting up. There's 3, 2, 1. So let's just get rid of all this. So press C for the cut tool, hold shift to cut the whole thing, back to V, select all, delete, and let's slide this over. Okay. So we're kind of at the start of our race here, which is great. And this is where you can use multicams to make it really interesting and save yourself so much time in editing. So the first thing I want to do is find these little arrows if you don't see it here. And I want to make sure that I can find this toggle multicam view, or you might actually have it on your thing if you can see it there, right? It's a little like 4 squares beside a big square, and you click on that. And what that's going to do, and for this guy as well, because we didn't build it as a multicam sequence, we need to make sure that we've enabled multicam. So we'll go to that nest, we'll right click on it, we'll go to multicam, we'll click enable, And now we have a multicam sequence. So this is what we're looking for. Let me make this bigger for you. Is a screen like this. We want a left side that has all 6 cameras lined up beside each other. We want a right side that shows us the actual edit, the timeline camera. So the cool thing about multicams is whatever is selected by this yellow box, these are our cameras listed 1 through 6, and I can use the number keys on my keyboard above the keys. I don't think the number pad was working for me, so just the regular ones. If I press 2 and I'm selected on the timeline, I will go to camera 2. If I press 3, I go to camera 3, and likewise down the line. So I can start to actually make edits through just switching cameras without having to go in and cut out the individual clip, which is so much easier for something like this. So for example, I know at the start that I want to make sure that I'm on this camera of Mario with the countdown timer. Okay, so I'm going to press 6 to go to that camera. And the cool thing about multicams is when you hit the spacebar to play, when I start switching between cameras, it's actually going to start making those edits when I hit play again and stop the timeline. So let me show you. So I'll talk through this as I do this. Hitting play on the spacebar. Mario's getting set up to run. Now I know I want to go to this camera here. 5. Okay. And it's actually baked that edit in when I made that press. So it's going to switch between that. Now he's zoomed off here and I would need to switch to another camera to see where he's going. So I like that he's on, I don't know, what camera is a good one? Maybe this camera here. So I have to be careful what I just did there because I clicked on that camera and it's now taken this whole clip and changed that. And so what I would need to do is I need to say, okay, I'm going to press the C key, make a cut here, go back to this camera, right? Because I liked seeing that he was on the iPhone camera 5 here, and then cut to this one. And so you can kind of start to like see how you can make these edits and make your sequence easier, right? So if I want to hit play, if I could keep up with it and do it, I could cut, you know, to each cam. My brain can't process which camera he's going to right now, but you know, with certain events, it's much easier to process, right? I hit the chair there. I don't even think that was my good race. I think the second one was my good race here. Yeah, I think that's the one I want to be looking at. But anyways, you can see how I start to make those edits here. And now if I realized, right, like I cut to this camera here and he's not even in that frame, and I want to change it, I just go over it, make sure that this is selected, and press the number key of whatever I want, and it will make that change. To do this the way that I'm doing this too, you might have to make sure that you have this option selected. I believe it's under selection follows playhead. So make sure that this is turned on, because when you have that, wherever I select on this timeline, it's going to highlight that primary track that we have selected here. So it makes it much easier to make these edits. So the thing is, I can kind of go through and start to make these changes. Now, if I realize for some reason that, hey, you know, I cut too late look, I cut too late here, right? He's left the frame and I want to go to him coming around here a little bit earlier. A really easy way to do that is with the N key. So N is in like Newton, like the science guy. So I press N and it will bring up my rolling edit tool. And what I can do is I can click between these two clips and just slide it over to that point. And what it's doing is it's, instead of moving these clips around, it's just changing the edit point between the two clips so that I can find this at the right spot. And, you know, maybe I have to kind of cheat this a little bit because he goes off screen, but yeah, I'm okay. That's probably okay. He'll probably come over. Right, that's not too bad. You know, he leaves, he gets blasted there, or boosted. Then I hit the chair leg. So you can start to see how I'm kind of making these changes on the outside. Now, something to note is, and this is also why I really like Multicam Sequences, is when you do your color grade later, because these are all different cameras, and we need to make sure that they look good. So these are all ungraded clips. Something that you're going to have to note is you end up making adjustments. So for example, like with, let's go make this some C70 footage because it's really easy to see. And I'm just going to kind of cut around here and change some of these to some other cameras, right? And this is back to C70, and then this is number 1, right? So we have a C70 here, and we have a C70 here, and these are other cameras. What you end up doing is you go in and you make your color grade, right? You kind of, you know, bring the shadows down, bring the blacks down, whites, blah, 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 make it nice, make it crunchy, okay? And the problem is you now have to copy that effect. I like to have my effects down here. You have to take that color grade and you copy it, and you go over here to the next clip and you paste it on here so each one has that. And then if you ever make one change, it's not universal. So let's use the Multicam sequence to make those changes quite easy. What I would do is I would go back to the Multicam sequence, the original at the start, and you can actually open this up so that you can see what's inside of it. If you right click on the Multicam sequence and you go to Open in Timeline, you click on that, and now we can actually see inside of the Multicam sequence. And the way to do this is I just find that C70, right? I can blink out these other layers, so I'm looking at the C70, and I can apply my color grade to it, and I can make my changes and kind of play around with this, right? It's not perfect, but you know, illustrates the point. Good enough. Then when I go back to my main sequence, it will apply that to these clips. So, you know, if I go back to this clip, you can see it's stacked that color grade on the Multicam, and it's also got my Lumetri changes on it. So I can just get rid of this, and now all those clips have been color graded in the right way that I want them to be. So this saves me a huge headache in having to try go through these individual clips and cut something together. So I'm going to play with this a little bit. I want to show you what kind of a finished timeline looks like with a multicam, and then maybe talk through some observations. So we'll see you in a sec. All right, so I did some color corrections so that all my cameras should be a little closer to each other. It's not perfect. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it should be easier to switch between them. Now I'm going to do a little bit of audio leveling. So the thing about audio leveling is what I want to do with this is find the tracks that I actually want to use, and I'm going to do this in a bit of a destructive way, but I'm just going to isolate them. So for example, I'm pretty sure this first one is the GoPro, and I can verify that. Oh, it's the 5D Mark III. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that sounds more like the GoPro. Anyways, I would find, yeah, that's the 5D. Which ones, you want to use. So for example, if I wanted to use the GoPro because it has an overall track of everything, plus I want to use this natural source from Mario, right? And then I can just, I'll do this in muting them so that we only hear the 2 tracks that we want to hear. I could also even just turn their volume down all the way, but this is going to be an easy way for us to then just take the sources that we want. So I want to have that sound of the cart on the floor, but I also want to have the sound of the game. Now the game volume is quite loud, so I'm going to hit the G key while that's selected and -6 that. And let's do it again. What I'm looking for is I want these to be relatively the same volume. So that's pretty low. And that's pretty loud. Let's bring this down a little bit more. Something like that. That's not bad. I'm okay with the game volume being a little louder than the track volume because it's more interesting than just hearing that like crinkle, crinkle, crinkle of him going around. And so now I've reduced this to the better track of him going around, and I'm just going to make my edits in this, and we'll see how this sounds at the end. So I have a nice neat little timeline here. And one of the things that I noticed while I was putting this together is whenever you make these edits, oftentimes when you're cutting in real time, you're pressing the button slower than when it's actually happened. So you many times have to go back in and just kind of refine the edit and find the best place. I noticed that with some of these, it felt a little bit more natural if I, for example, here, cut to just before he comes into frame versus after frame. So you kind of want to lead a little bit of what you're doing, but again, use your gut to see what feels right. The other thing I learned with this is as you're going along, and it takes your brain a little bit to process, especially when you have 6 cameras like this, which ones you're cutting to and what's the best angles. But try and think about the story of what you're cutting here and what you're trying to show the audience. It is very easy to overcut things and just every time, for example, Mario hits a corner, you make a cut point and just cut. And I came back in here and actually removed a few of these cuts to make it a little bit more open. What you can do is say, for example, you decided that, this angle and this angle needed to all be the same one. If I change this to be the same clip, you can actually right click on the edit between and go join through edits, and it will make it a full clip again. So that's a nice way to kind of clean things up and make a tighter little sequence here. So let's slide this down, right? So now we've got our kind of multicam plus our title, and I can, we can have our little universal counting leader in 5, 4, 3. Let's say start at 4, get rid of this. Right click that space, ripple delete to save that, have that fade in. What is it? Shift D is in delta. Yeah, we'll make a fade. And we've got a cool beginning video. And I don't know if there's sound on that. I don't think I have. Oh, that's so loud. -12. Okay. Yeah, let's make that even a little lower. So I'm just pressing G, -6. G just brings up the audio, which is an easy way to do this. So 4, 3, 2. And let's just cheat a little bit of that Mario audio in. So I just held Option to drag just the audio track, sliding it over. I've clicked on this audio thing here and Shift Delta D, and it will add a little fade. Right, give us a little, and I want this to maybe go away with that beep. Just somewhere around there. I don't know why it's not showing the waveform, but let's just do that. Cool. So let's see what we got here. All right, good job, Mario. Way to make it around the course. You're the winner. When you have this multicam sequence, you can do other little fun things too. Like for example, I really like this shot of, him driving around. So I'm gonna make a copy of this by holding Option and sliding up. And I'm just gonna extend this the entire length. Maybe not the beginning, but as soon as he starts here, right? So this would be the whole thing. And I'm going to shrink this down by going to Effects and then Scale and bringing it small. And let's move that into the corner and let's just create a little picture-in-picture of him racing the whole time, right? Like they do in sports. So, if you had multiple things going on and you wanted to show somebody what's happening, you've got your cut edits underneath that little multicam track, right? So you can see what's going on. There's a lot of fun things you can do with this. Anyways, I hope you learned something from that video about multicams. It's a really fun way to edit video together and make your life a lot easier when you're dealing with the numerous different video tracks. Don't forget to like and comment and subscribe if you have any questions, and I look forward to the next video tutorial. Thanks, have a nice day.